midnight past the iron gate. Glacier walls the only state. Breath is freezing into needles. Floating glass, the winter wheedles. Compass glasses cracking thin. Magnetic north cannot begin. Navigation data lost. Mapping out the killing frost. Absolute zero hits the jaw. Ice is writing nature's law. Vector paths are buried deep. Geometry is too steep to keep. Nerves are shorting in the gale. Systems flick that turn to pale. Hardware locked in frozen chains. Liquid nitrogen in veins. Pay the tax to keep the fray. Pay the tax. Coal has no reserve or name. No name. Black thumb falls upon the snow. On the snow. Bone is all the data know. We know absolute zero wins the face. The face crush the weakness from the race. The race. Black and frostbitten fingertips. Ice is sealing up the lips. Radius and on the grind. Leave the dying flesh behind. Tendons tighten like a cable. Standing firm while I am able. Amputation logic clears. Kill the receptors, kill the fears. Calibrating bone to steel. Loss of limb is no big deal. Thermal core is drawing in. Sacrifice the outer skin. Ribs are cages for the heat. Ice will never know defeat. Primary objective holds. Moving through the frozen folds. Blood turns to code. Stay on the road. Bone is the load. Frost is the mode. Cut the weight to keep the pace. Steel is cold in this dark place. Marrow logic hard and true. Northern storm is coming through. Physics crush the human form. I am data in the storm. Calibrate the pain to none. Winter's work is never done. Pay the tax to keep the fray. Pay the tax. Cold has no reserve or name. No name. Black thumb falls upon the snow. On the snow. Bone is all the data know. We know absolute zero wins the face. The face crush the weakness from the race. Shield is frozen to the grip. Let the dead and tissue slip. Axe is rising in the dark. Frozen nerves provide the spark. Digital Valhalla calls inside these glaciated walls. Input death and output war. Fulfilling the ancient lore. Shatter the phalanges now. Break the frozen mountain's brow. Systems running hot and dry. Underneath the war-torn sky, kinetic energy remains. Running through the frozen plains. Victory is calculated. Weakness is eliminated. Bone and ice. 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 Blood on the ice. Blood on the ice. Blood on the ice.
Red ice chipping under heavy leather boots. Ancestral server feeding on the bloody roots. 3 frozen ravens on a dead black branch. Static in the air before the avalanche. Shield one geometry is the landing rose. Binary of slaughter is the only thing she knows. Severed artery is leaking on the glacier floor. Input output of the carnage and the war.
The code is written in the frozen vein.
The data of the dead is a tread instead.
No mercy in the structure of the collarbone.
The physics of the axe is carved in stone. Calibration of the radius and on the bone. Reading ancient data from the frozen throne. Nerve bundles firing like a circuit board. Ancestral memory is the final horde. Running scars are pulsing over collarbone. Processing the marrow on the frozen throne. Jaw is locking tight to keep the thermal heat. Iron clatter on the percussive beat. Rib cage is a bastion for the pumping gear. Zero tolerance motivation. Calibrate the tension in the shoulder blade. Fatal execution of the debt unpaid. Scanning every tendon for the latency. Cold logic of the blade is the consistency.
The code is written in the frozen vein.
The data of the debt needs a shed instead.
No mercy in the structure of the collarbone.
The basics of the axe is carved in stone. Oxygen is burning in the lung supply. Carbon of the charred remains will never die. Hardware of the skeleton is locked in place. Velocity of iron hitting shattered face. No diplomacy inside the granite walls. Only echoes ringing through the hollow halls. System reboot in the fury of the gale. Victory is measured on the iron scale. Whispered oaths into the blizzard storm. Uniform of slaughter is the only form. Cartilage is grinding under pressure now. Sealing every promise in the ancient vow. Severed vessels praise upon the frozen script. Ancient algorithm is the one we gripped. Femur snapping under the hydraulic force. Glacier moving on its unrelenting course. No forgiveness down within the marrow cell. Echoes of the fallen in the frozen shell. Extracting the values that the gods decreed. Stowing every harvest with the iron seed.
The code is written in the frozen vein.
The data of the dead is a shed instead.
No mercy in the structure of the collarbone.
The physics of the axe is carved in stone.
Red ice chipping under boots.
System growing from the root.
Red ice chipping under boots.
System growing from the root. No forgiveness, only data. No forgiveness.
I dropped the wolf pelt in the frozen grit. The code is code and I am loving it. The animal hide is a discarded shell. My biometrics know the system well. I strip the fur layer to the naked skin. Let the sub-zero calibration in. The skin surface meets the horizontal sleet. The data map of winter is complete. My ribcage expands like a Valkyrie wing. I hear the sound of the binary sing. No heat is found within this architecture. Pure physics is the only real conjecture. The surface temperature is dropping fast. The human software cannot ever last. I shed the warmth to let the cyclist start. Cold steel is pumping from the muscly heart. Stand on my fire and ripe cage of steel. The ice is the only truth that I feel. The ice is the only truth that I feel. Stripping the wolf to the marrow and bone. Shivering muscles are locking to stone. Unblinking eyes in the dark of the night. Scanning the data for reason to fight. Stripping the warmth from the tendon and nerve. The laws of the winter are all that I serve. The horizontal sleet cuts to the core. I am the logic of eternal war. My connective tissue is turning to ice. The blood is the fuel for the sacrifice. The capillaries begin to constrict. I read the full thought that the gods predict. The axe is heavy but the grip is tight. My retinas are adjusting to light. The hail is a download of violent strikes. I walk on a plateau of glacier spikes. No shiver is a load within the grid. I kill the weakness that the ancestors did. The tempering process is hard on the flesh. As in into modern geometries mesh. My vertebrae stacked like a tower of lead. The warm blood of old is entirely dead. I am the hardware, the frozen land mead. A system of power, a system of deeds. Turn on my fire and ripe cage of steel. The ice is the only truth that I feel. The ice is the only truth that I feel. Stripping the warmth to the marrow and bone. Shivering muscles are locking to stone. Unblinking eyes in the dark of the night, scanning the data for reason to fight. Stripping the warmth from the tendon and nerve. The laws of the winter are all that I serve. The horizontal sleet cuts to the core. I am the logic of eternal war. The belt is gone, the frost is drawn. The new geometry of the dawn. My nerve endings are burnt by the white. I merge with the cold and I merge with the night. No shelter resort in the valley below. I am the anvil beneath the deep snow. The calibration is fixed in place. The sleet is the mask on my stopped-in face. My knees do not bend in the force of the storm. The Arctic is where I can truly reform. The pelvis is anchored, the ravens descend. The mud, the love carnage that never will end. The data is burning and never we joined. I reach the final breaking point. The algorithm runs in the marrow today. I threw the comfort of far away. My lungs are two caverns of crystalline air. The gods of the valley I stare and they stare. I stand as a monument carved out with thrill. The fists I cow law of the Vic, my section will. I am the hard tribe of northern light, prepared for the longest eternal fight. Stripping the warmth, stripping the warmth, the marrow and bone.
The leather belt tightens to the final notch. The shadow is frozen inside of the watch. We grind the bitter pine bark into dust. The geometry screams in the hinges of rust. The ribs of the raptors of hollowed out halls. The data is bleeding on invisible walls. I swallow the winter to stiffen the spine. The physics of starving is perfect and fine. Empty the vessel and sharpen the blade. The debt of the body is finally paid. Cold is the logic and cold is the heat. The marrow is glory, the marrow is meat. The cheekbone stretched tight like a drum on the frame. The system reboots and it forgets the name. I smell the roasted meat floating in air. A phantom illusion I refuse to share. The tongue is a circuit that's burned to the root. The hunger is poison inside of the fruit. I reject the fat and I reject the oil. My nerves are the cables buried in soil. We calibrate tendons to maximize torque. The vulture is circling the dead in the orc. The shield is a monitor flashing with red. The ancestor code is alive in the dead. My skull is a hard drive of glacier and stone. The latency zero inside of the bone. I tighten the levers and lock the input. The blood is a liquid that freezes the foot. Empty the vessel and sharpen the blade. The debt of the body is finally paid. Cold is the logic and cold is the heat. The marrow is glory, the marrow is meat. Calibrate, eliminate. The flesh is a burden of useless weight. The stomach is shrinking to 0%. The oxygen burden, the oxygen spent. I do not need. I do not need. I do not crave. I do not crave. The body is nothing but dope and gray. The hallucination is rendering slow. A table of Venice then lost in the snow. Where block the encryption, I sever the link. I stand on the edge and I refuse to blink. Synapses firing like arrows of light. The voltage is surging in middle of night. The phantom of hunger is deleted today. The iron is heavy, the flesh is away. The cartilage cricks under pressure of war. I am the program they cannot ignore. Calculate tech with the edge of the axe. The driver is loaded, the vessel is waxed. The ribs of the armor, the ribs of the gate. I drive on the nothing, I drive on the hate. The marrow is dancing, the marrow is cold. The logic of winter is starting to hold. Empty the vessel and sharpen the blade. The debt of the body is finally paid. Cold is the logic, and cold is the heat. The marrow is glory, the marrow is meat. System starved. Geometry locked. The bone is the king.
The structural frame, data of violence, no mention of name. Ribs are the casing for engines of breath. Physical physics, the logic of death. Shield wall geometry, static and stone. Code is a code written deep in the bone. Scanning the unit, the column is tight. Lens is calibrated for infinite night. Friction is measured in tendons and grit. The system is perfect, the system won't quit. But one link is bending, the metal is thin. A fracture is starting beneath the gray skin. Quadrants are shifting, the rhythm is wrong. Weakness is noise and the frequency strong. Zero redundancy, data is clear. Pressure is mounting, the raiders are near. Velocity dictates the law of the pack. There is no reversal, there is no track back. Track the alignment, the angle, the load. Errors are deleted to clear up the road. Track the radius, cut the weights. Calibrate the bloody state. March on. March on. Axe is logic, steel is law. Fix the geometry, find the flaw. March on. March on. One soldier falters, the knee joint is blown. White noise of agony, marrow and moan. No room for stutter, no room for delay. The march is a circuit that has to obey. I stand over geometry broken in two. Filter the input, there's work left to do. No words are spoken, the air is too thin. Nerve fire is dying inside of the tin. He looks at my gauntlet, his senses are dark. He gives me the signal, a dying remark. A silent nod of permission is given. The contract of warfare is finally driven. I wrap the cranial base in the white, and the transmission extinguish the light. I snap the neck quick in the deepening snow. Disconnect cables, the vitals go low. Cervical vertebrae shattered and clean. A mechanical exit, a Gawker routine. Physics are settled, the error is void. The weakness is physically purely destroyed. Crack the radius, cut the weights. Calibrate the bloody state. March on. March on. Axe is logic, steel is law. Fix the geometry, find the flaw. March on. March on. Bloody footprints marching away from the site. Red data points in the blind, in the white. Distance is calculated, time is a blade. The depth of the sluggish is properly paid. Leave the unburied corpse of the wolves. Nature is software with sharper approvals. They'll whip the tendons, they'll harvest the meat. Recycling the failure to make it complete. Shield to the shoulder, the vanguard is set. The snow is a ledger of frozen asset. We do not hesitate, we do not pause. We follow the vector of primitive laws. No bioelectric of grief in the veins. Only the purity left in the rain. Forward momentum, the only output. Crushing the permafrost under the foot. Scanning the horizon for targets to hit. Internal combustion, the furnace is lit. We are the algorithm, cold and precise. Writing our history in blood on the ice. Geometry, find the flaw. March on. Velocity maintained. The path is clear. Mission complete. The path is clear. Data points 0. Only the march remains at the core. Only the logic of infinite war.
Joints calcifying into heavy hinges. Cold is the only code that it infringes. Ribs are locking into a frozen cage, deleting the mammalian biological page. The vertebrae aligned to a fixed axis. Physics sharper than the heavy battle axes. Hardware, lungs breathing in the iron dust. Tendons tightening to bypass organic rust. Skin permanently turning ash gray tone. Flesh merging with the geometry of stone. Nerves are wires conducting zero heat. Calibration of the flesh is now complete. Summer snapping into the chassis slot. Mammal garbage leaving the system to rot. Scapula expanding like a heavy iron plate. Geometry is calculating warrior fate.
Axis clashing as the pulse expires. Data streaming through the frozen reeds. Bone and hardware is all a warrior needs. Physics strengthen
By the tundra fire.
Physics strengthen
By the tundra fire. Frostbitten lips cracking without bleeding. The circulatory system is receding. Pulse dropping to 20 beats per minute. A dead rhythm with no mammal left within it. Capillaries freezing into silver trails. Climbing up the mountain like a set of nails. Phalanges welding to the carbon steel grip. Launching the vessel on a one-way trip. Cranium mapping the northern star data, leaving behind the organic errata. Clavicles grinding with the mechanical sound. The shield is bolted to the frozen ground. Tibia fusing with the permafrost floor. Closing the mammal exit and the door. Cartilage is carbon fiber stiff and cold. The shield wall is the only law we hold. No heat in the marrow. No curve in the arrow.
Logic is the glacier moving through the nerve. Zero deviation from the tundra curve. Input the frost and the iron will process. The human is gone and the void will possess.
Kneecaps locking into heavy metal bolts. Ignoring the rhythm of the cardiac jolts. Shoulders rewire for the weight of the axe. Breaking the spine of the mammalian facts. Pelvis is welded to the saddle and frame. Forgotten the blood, then forgotten the name. Radius and Ola turning solid as leaf. There is no software for the tears you shed.
Axis flashing as the pulse expires. Data streaming through the frozen reeds. Bone and hardware is all a warrior needs. Physics strengthen
By the tundra fire. Mandible clamped in a permanent lock. Body is harder than a running in rock. Optic nerve sewn into the whiteout glands of a rock. Teacher remains in the air. Sternum is over by a layered alloy. Everything flesh we must erase and destroy. Knock the tarsals anchored to the ice and the ash. Wait for the binary and physical crash. Crash. 20 beats per minute. No mammal left within it. No mammal left within it. No mammal left within it.
Shield wall breached by a linear force. I track the projectile back to the source. Metal has anchored deep in the chest. Put the geometry of combat to test. Measuring the depth of the spear in the rib. Data is leaking from the broken fib. Shattered ribs grinding together like stone. White powder leaking from splintered bone. I taste the iron in saliva and grit. Internal bleeding at the point of the hit. No need for mercy, no need for the shame. This is a physics calculation by name. The iron records the truth of the blow. The data is born in the blood as it flows. The geometry carved in the frozen terrain. The logic of war is the logic of pain. Calcium strands failed the stress test today. Kinetic input makes the tibia fray. Mapping the angle of strike in the dirt. Counting the seconds of the systemic hurt. 300 meters the javelin flew. Calibrating distance from the point of the view. Tendons are snapping like cables of wire. Biomechanics are caught in the fire. Nerves sending signals of total shutdown. Now wear the metrics like a heavyweight crown. Armor integrity has falling to zero. Logic of death over myths of the hero. I read the code in the opening dash. Data extracted from bone in the ash. Calibrate district and calibrate force. Follow the metal back to the source. The body is nothing but numbers and weight. Processing truth on the edge of the plane. Zero emotion, just geometry found. Measuring fate in the depth of the wound.
Access of entry is perfect and flat. Enemic efficiency is built around that. I feel the friction of the socket enjoying. Process he lost in the impact point. Soft tissue tear reveals the design. Tracing the path of the serrated line. No marrow mixing with alling of ice. Victory comes at a cackle and a price. No local trauma, no shaking a van. Just mapping the dead across wasteland. I am the process of scanning the field. Broken anatomy is all that they yield.
I press my fingers against the cold steel, calculating velocity to make it real. 4 inches deep through the pectoral wall, recording the physics inside of the fall. No medics required, no prayers for the gods, just balancing metrics and leaving the odds. The enemy stands at a distance of 10. I prepare the equation to kill them again. The tendon, the fiber, the bone and the marrow. The curve of the axe and the flight of the arrow. The system is failing, the metric is clear. There is no emotion, only the spear. I read the code in the opening gash. Data extracted from bone in the ash. Calibrate district and calibrate force. Follow the metal back to the source. The body is nothing but numbers in weight. Processing truth on the edge of the blade. Zero emotion, just geometry found. Measuring fate in the depth of the wall. Strike, angle, locked. Geometry mapped. Calibration complete. Distance acquired. Sound of a heavy axe being sharpened.
Steel in the marrow. Steel in the marrow, iron in the chest. Gravity pulling, put the ribs to the test. Ascending the summit where the data is cold. Rewriting the history that the ancestors told. Heavy frost weighing down the eyelashes now. Ice on the forehead, the shield in the brow. Calibration of flesh to the laws of the peak. Ice crystals forming where the oxygen is weak. Swallowing whole snowflakes to hydrate the cell. Breaking the geometry of heaven and hell. My tendons are cables, my nerves are the wire. Burning the frozen, the fuel, the fire. Binary blizzards in every breath. Calculating victory, ignoring the death. Axes and algorithms carving the way. Turning the darkness to militant gray.
Exhaling against white fog to the sky.
The gods watch us die.
Inhaling the vortex to harden the bone.
The summit is thrown.
The physics of winter are written in gore.
The ancient core.
Calibrate lungs to the pressure and storm.
The pressure of altitude veins, nerves are transmitting the Arctic refrains. Rib cage is lacking the shield of the frame. Data is ancient but carries no name. I inhale the shrapnel of frozen gray air. Ice in the bronchioles igniting the glare. Bone marrow freezes then hardens to glass, waiting for weakness and softness to pass. Axial tilt in the twing of the blade. Physics of slaughter in every grade. Anatomical limits are deleted and purged when the man and the glacier are finally merged. Skeleton framework is forged in the gale, hardened like armor in dragon scale mail. Scan and go wiped out for targets of war, crushing the logic of what was before.
Bone against iron, marrow against claw. Nerve endings frozen to signal the strike. Nothing remaining is human or like. Calibration complete. Calibration complete.
Great coding, the oxygen, blood in the core. Ice in the lungs are the engines of war. Eyelashes heavy with frost of the void. Pretty aspersions are crushed and destroyed. Swallowing slow to lubricate stripes. Sound in the war drums and Nordic types. Physical markers of ancient array. Geometry lethal, the Viking ray. Sundering systems of mercy and heat. Cold-blooded rhythm in every beat. Mirror met chilling 2, 0, and 1. Blood is the data before it is done. Warrior hardware with primitive drive. Only the frozen are truly alive. I am the whites of the storm in the eye. Living by logic already to die.
Right far to the sky.
The gods watch you die.
Inhaling the vortex, the heart and the bone.
The summit is
The
thrown.
physics of winter are written in gore.
The ancient core war.
Calibrate lungs to the pressure and storm.
No longer war.
Code in the veins. Ice in the ribs. Calibration 0. Calibration 0.
Thick black smoke rising to the frozen gray. Audit the village, watching all decay. I stand still on the edge of the shelf. Audit the losses of the clan itself. Gray ash drifting on my armored frame. Inventory burns, I forget the name. Pouch of rations is untouched and full. Gravity exerts a consistent pull. No vibration in the marrow bone. Sitting silent on a throne of stone. Muscle fibers staying perfectly still. Execution of the program will. Calibrate the oxygen to feed the flame. Village delation, it does not to shame. Input variables, the ribs will crack. No use running, never looking back. 40 miles stopped by the heavy heat. The grain inventory is now complete. Physics of the timber, how it snaps and breaks. Measure the gravity of high stakes. Connective tissue melting in the grid. Delete the weakness that the bloodline hid. Data processed through the optic nerve. This is the justice that the physics serve. The blood is cold, the lie is told. System calibration in the winter air. Nothing is left, I do not care. The ribs are dry, the settlements die. Geometry a failure on the burning floor. Calculate the profit of the eternal war. Zero in motion in the central node. Rewriting the ancient warrior code. Ligament stretching in the killing zone. Isolation in the tactical lone. Thermal signatures begin to fade. Profit margins in the bloody trade. Nerves are firing at a static rate. Neutral stance, I accept the fate. Skull, geometry against the stone. No vibration in the marrow bone. Calcium deposits in the blackened soil. In the rebellion and the daily toil. Structural integrity is failing fast. Nothing in the logic gate is built to last. Pre-ash coating on the metal sleeve. Final calculations, time to leave. Bypass the synapse so the fear responds. Added the burning at the site for wands. Cold conduction through the iron skin. The total service where the wars begin. wasteland, peak of the climb. One last look at the ash below. Nowhere left for the weak to go. Breath in, breath out. Breath in, breath out. Breath in, breath out. Wood meets wood and the lefties evoke. System stabilized under the yoke. Splinter its effect is locking the road. Geometry fixes the path of the blow. Rib slam tight by the shoulder and bone. Solid state physics inside of the zone. Heals all the inchores, the calcium grips. Kinetic energy loads in the hips. Nerves of the wire and the marrow is dry. Nothing remains but the blink of an eye. Tendons are tight as the pressure is high. Binary function, we live or we die. Swing the pendulum. Grind the max and hum. One momentum. One syllable. One force. One course. One storm. One form. Visor is painted in viscous red code. Symbolic data begins to erode. Liquid calibration splattered didn't tick. Hardware is functioning, listen to it click. Fists of the pistons, the muscle is mesh. And organic power insides of the flesh. Scanning the horizon for geometric gaps. Classified enemies fall in the trap. So tight and levels as a stabler and flat. No room for mercy and no room for chat. Operational logic replacking the self. Putting the human up onto the shelf. Swing the pendulum. Grind the maximum. One momentum. One syllable. One force. One course. One storm. One form. Marrow is the battery. Spine is the machinery. Nerves pulsing with the frequency. Lines moving with them fighting sea. I am the lever, the center, the fulcrum. I am the sound of the skulls as they become gum. Armor is body, the body is steel. Crushing the values of how we might feel. Iron grand flow in the pulp of the wrist. Adding a notch to the handle and list. One more in putrescent validates the swing. Waiting for the metro to echo and ring. Shoulders are pulley, the elbow is hinged. No more emotion, no need to refrain. Synchronized, repping a 50 is one. Processes then lesson never is done. Flow state is found in the depths of the grind. Leaving the arrows of racing behind. Bring the pendulum. Grind the maximum. One momentum. One syllable. One force. One course. One storm. One System stabilized. End of line. Exactly what the Marrow bid. Pristine marble mapping out the stain. Hardware logic calibrating pain. White floors hosting black data trails. Iron conquers where the softness fails. Boots breaking through the white code. Walking down the ancestral road. Every step is a system crash. Turning turning royal geometry to ash. Cold steel running through the nerve, killing every southern curve. Like the strike on the Golden Gate, recalculating the lines of fate. Rib cages locking in the cold, we have no use for the fables told. The softness, crush it down, turn the data to the ground. We don't want the wealth you hold, we just want to break the mold. Crush the softness, bone and iron, feed the heart of the cold siren. Crush the softness, crush the softness, crush the softness. Delicate porcelain under the heel, shattered geometry made of steel. Fragile vases losing all their base, erasing every single trace. Ceramic shards cutting the ground, making the only logical sound. Hardware crushing the pretty clay, ending the weakness of the day. Code is written in the open wound, southern logic is now impugned. Calibrating the edge of the blade, watching the resolution fade. Vertebrae aligned to the north, sending the killing signal forth. Tendon tension at the max limit, breaking the boom and everything in it. Gold coins ignored in the dirt, economic physics feel the herd. Value is zero in the mud, only currency is the blood. Traveling wealth into the grid, logic doesn't care for it. Burn the gold, stay cold. Silk tapestries tearing from the wall, watching the southern history fall. Ripping the fabric to black for the steel, only the tactile is real. Cloth is data to clean the axe, breaking the spine of the soft facts. Geometry of the falling thread, walking over the unwritten dead. Crush the softness, crush it down, burn the data to the ground. We don't want the wealth you hold, we just wanna break the mold. Crush the softness, bone and iron, feed the heart of the cold siren. Crush the softness, crush the softness, crush the softness. Skull is the housing for the drive, only the hard will stay alive. Nerves are firing at overclock, turning the palace into the rock. Physics of the hammer and nail, watching the southern hardware fail. Crushing the sculpture, crushing the plan. Iron is the master of the man. System purged, marble stained. Logic won, nothing remained. Crush the softness.
In the veins is cold code, walking down the frozen war road. Marrow in the femur feels the weight, processing the data of your fate. Sweat on the brow is freezing the glass, waiting for the seconds to pass. Unblinking ocular lenses locked, system of the combat is overclocked. I see the geometry of your ribs, feeding on the logic of these fibs. Calcium and carbon on the line, everything you own is now mine. Rooted like a mountain in the mud, calculating liters of your blood.
Crack the bone,
Standing alone,
crack the bone,
heart of stone.
crack the bone,
Standing alone,
crack the bone.
heart of stone. Calibration of the heavy axe, finding all the structural cracks. Tendons stretching tight like a wire, synapse firing up the nerve fire. I don't see a human in the frost, I just see a variable loss. Static in the cartilage is loud, wrapped inside a frozen metal shroud. My stance is the center of the map, closing up the fatal logical gap. Vertebrae aligned with the steel, breaking everything that is real. No mercy in the binary of death, counting every vapor of your breath.
Who blinks first in the iron light?
Geometry of the end of the fight.
Who blinks first when the tendon breaks?
Calibration of the lethal stakes.
Root and feet in the frozen soil.
Nerves are stretched in a heavy coil.
No flinch in the
a snap clean, running like a killing machine. Scapula is shattered by the weight, locking in the terminal state. Physics of the impact are pure, nothing in the flesh is secure. Ocular pressure hitting the peak, I don't listen when the weak can speak. Your rib cage is a broken fence, nothing in your struggle makes sense. Data stream is leaking on the snow, nowhere for the energy to go. Hardware, failure in your knee, I am the last thing you will see.
Bone and iron,
Iron and cold,
bone and iron,
end of the road.
bone and iron,
Iron and cold,
bone and iron.
end of the road.
Axe on the vertebrae, no more light of day. Axe on the vertebrae, clear the pathway. Who blinks first in the iron light?
Geometry of the end of the fight.
Who blinks first when the tendon breaks?
Calibration of the legal states.
Rooted feet in the frozen soil.
Nerves are stretched in a heavy coil.
No flinch in the eye of the storm.
Death is the only remaining form. Scanning the horizon for the next. Reading all the violence in the text. Marrow is the only thing I trust. Everything else is turning to dust. Connection lost. Connection lost.
Point status, the system is cold. The ledger of slaughter is strictly uphold. Shattered geometry, locking the thigh. Tracking the stars in the digital sky. Femur is split like a shield made of ash. Marrow is burning from kinetic crash. Calibrate movement on axis of pain. Dragging the hardware through frozen terrain. Boot tread is locked in the crystalline crust. Converting the tissue to carbon and dust. Physics of torque in the shoulder blade hinge. Moving the frame past the frostbite singe. Interface broken, the signals are red. Processing vitals inside of the head. Connective tissue is frayed at the seam. Locking the motor function logic stream. Drag the trench through the total erase. Bone and the metal in dead static space. 3 miles of data in waist deep snow. 0% where the life used to flow. Nose breathing, only the intake is ice. Lungs are a mechanical filtering device. Silence is coated in fibers of jaw. Grinding the motors to overcome thaw. The splinters a piston of leather and pine. Strapped to the junction of lower spine. Useless the muscle when dead is the nerve. Holding the trajectory straight without swerve. Red is the data left back in the trail. Organic components are starting to fail. Ligaments stretching like cables of wire. Dragging the skeleton through the white fire. Patella is grinding on granite and frost. Calculating exactly the energy lost. Vectoring homeward on shattered support. Logging the physical trauma report. The trench through the total erase. Bone in the metal in dead static space. 3 miles of data in waist deep snow. 0% where the life used to flow. No audio output, the system is mute. Strictly adhering to survival compute. Nose breathing, only the rhythm is locked. Oxygen levels are carefully stocked. Measured and even the exhale is spin. Keeping the heat in the layers of skin. Measured and steady, the inhale is cold. Staying invisible, staying controlled. Axle of hip joint is jammed in the socket. Hand is a claw in the thermal suit pocket. Sternum is rigid, the ribs are a cage. Writing the blood on the permafrost page. Running Wicked written inside of the gene, keeping the skeleton fighter machine. Metatarsal grinding the sub-zero third. Disconnect now from the signal of hurt. Plasma is sickening inside the vein. Overclock slamming through the disdain. Shield while the vertebrae holding the line. Updating coordinates by the design. Leather sling finding the dead out of skin. Forcing the accuracy warfare to win. Sine wave of movement is heavy and slow. Leaving the gutter of dread in the snow. 10,000 meters of wagging the lens. Breaking the permanent station defense. Sported perenture is sinking to nil. Driving by nothing but frozen iron will quench through the total erase. Bone in the metal in dead static space. 3 miles of data in waist deep snow. 0% where the life used to flow. System is shutting down now. Finalizing the vow. Calibration complete. No retreat. No retreat. No retreat.
Cold iron pressing on the radius bone. The nerve endings enter the deadened zone. Pre-dawn light on the armory floor. Calibration starts at the center core. Check the peripheral limits of the skin. The biological failure is rotting within. Wooden fingertips on the cold steel rim. Light is fading and the vision is dim. Gray in veins forming a mapped out grid under the translucent flesh where the pulse is hid. Rigid posture like a monolith stone. The marrow is frozen inside of the bone. No shiver detected in the shoulder blade. The laws of physics are rewritten and made. I stare at the hand and I order the grip. The flesh is a hull on a long range ship.
Bone to the iron, blood to the eyes.
The dagger point carved through the palm, flesh deep. The synapses buried in the final sleep. Steel slides open on the surface plane. Zero input signal reaches the brain. No recoil detected in the tendon line. The geometry of pain is no longer mine. Calibration of the nervous system is done. I am the vessel and the weapon in one. Drag the edge harder till the layer is torn. This is the moment the statue is born. Completely unfeeling in the heat of the fray. The data of touch is just fading to gray.
The body is a fortress of bone and ash.
I do not flinch at the open
The
slash.
circuit is broken, the nerves are still.
Converting the marrow to iron will.
Statuesque in the armory glare.
Sensory data is no longer there.
I am the code in the shield wall lattice.
Death is a function of war-driven status. Ribcage lattice is an iron gate. Optimizing the vessel for the heavier weight. Bone density climbing to a maximized peak. The biological output is failing and weak. Cold-blooded logic in the thalamus core. The shield is an interface for eternal war. I look at the wound where the red should flow, but the viscosity is sludge and the movement is slow. Hard-coded fury in the ventricle wall. I am the pillar that never will fall. Scan the horizon for the burning side. The nerves had to with us so the warrior could rise. I reach for the handle with fingers of wood. I would break the world now if I only could. Completely unfeeling, completely alive. Only the hardened structures survive. Armor is fused to the clavicle frame. The system has purged the last of the name. Input the battle plan straight to the skull. The vessel is armored and heavy the hull. Calibration complete in the cold and the dark. I am the fire, but I don't feel the spark. Statuesque posture is locked into place. I carry the void on my unmoving face. No reaction to the freezing air. I am the wolf in the mechanized lair. The dagger is dropped and it cutters unslone. I am the master of the dead end zone.
The body is a fortress of bone and ash.
I do not flinch at the open slash.
The circuit is broken, the nerves are still.
a function of war-driven status. Gray veins, dead blurs, calibration finalized. The death of touch is complete.
The system is binary, the epidermis is thin. I map the location where the failure begins. The biological grid shows a rupture in code. Under the muscle, the data streams slowed. Black fluid drained from a swollen blister. The infection is cold, a rock-born sister. I calculate vectors, I isolate pain. No abstract delusions, just plasma and stain. The femur is structural, the socket is steel. I ignore the synapses, I crush what I feel. Wait, I delete that, the feeling is gone. Only the hardware remains in the dawn. Calibrate, the heat is the logic. Calibrate, the fire is the law. Calibrate, the metal is honest. Calibrate, the marrow is raw. Unblinking eyes staring through the rising smoke of burning flesh. The kinetic force of the iron makes the data refresh. Searing an open wound with a glowing hot iron. The laws of physics rewrite the heart of the lion. No weakness remains in the geometry now. The calibrated Valhalla is breaking the bro. I apply the conductor, the carbon, the heat. The hardware is screaming, the build is complete. I monitor plasma, I stabilize nerve. A perfectly cauterized ugly scar is the curve. It marks the coordinates, the vertex of war. I am not the raider I was once before. The tendons, the cables, the ligaments, wire. I forge the new sequence inside of the pyre. My ribs are a chassis, the lungs are a pump. Over the blockage, the electrical jump. I cauterize failure, I burn out the drift. Watch the molecular density shift. No soul in the vacuum, no spirit in bone. Just calibrated matter standing alone. The nerves are the senses, the marrow is fuel. The thermodynamic process is cruel. I do not recoil, I do not retreat. The reconstruction is finally neat. Neat. I scan the horizon with optics of stone. To the geometry hardens inside of the bone. I am a machine built on Norse mythology. I refuse the concept of an apology. Look at the scar, it is data made real. A hard reset triggered by pressure and steel. The white noise of burning, the smell of the skin. This is where the new operating cycles begin. I tighten the grip on the axe handle frame. I am the output, I am not the name. I recoup the trauma, I delete the decay. Through the smoke and the ash, I am finding the way. Unblinking eyes staring through the rising smoke of burning flesh. The kinetic force of the iron makes the data refresh. Searing an open wound with a glowing hot iron. The laws of physics rewrite the heart of the lion. No weakness remains in the geometry now. The calibrated Valhalla is breaking the brow. Complete. System is hardened. The fire crackles and dies into silence.
the southern vein. Their biology is screaming in the freezing rain. The geometry of murder is a perfect line. Your failing architecture is a broken design. I see the synovial fluid turning into glass. We watch the seconds of your perished empire pass. Spinal column is a copper rod of pain. We flush the data of your lineage down the drain. The hardware of your palace is cracking at the base. Is no software that can save your pretty face. We recalibrate the temperature to absolute zero. There is no statue left to mark a southern hero. Your rib cage is a prison made of brittle calcium. We walk the hollow halls of your dead auditorium. I map the fractures in your femur with a caliper. You are the dust inside the burning throat of Jupiter.
Thrust, climbing up a golden crown.
Watching the system shutting down.
Purple lips on the mnemonics and the memory.
The ice is coating the new geometry. Your nervous system is a grid of static and decay. We deleted the sunlight and we canceled the day. The tendons in your wrist are snapping like a wire. There is no heat inside your sacrificial fire. Use the Simon chains are snapping in the cold. The new engine is grinding down your temple of gold. Your cerebellum is a hard drive locked in stasis. We found the glitch inside the middle of your basis. Your marrow is the frozen sludge inside the bone. We shattered every signal coming from the throne. I count the vertebrae as they begin to separate. We all the algorithm fixing every wrong state. The metabolic rate is dropping to the floor. We kick the hinges off the heavy iron door. Your body is a machine that refused to calibrate. Now the Arctic pressure is the only law of fate.
Ice expanding in the stone pillar.
The glacier is the only serial killer.
Purple frozen lips of the dead kings.
Snap the chains of your dual thing.
Ice expanding in the stone pillar.
The glacier is the only serial killer.
Purple frozen lips of the dead dreams.
Snap the chains of your dual things. I traced the ice across the veins inside your temple. The death of your civilization is so simple. Your gray matter is the circuit board of white ash. We are the reboot after the fatal system crash. Your jawbone is hinged on the logic of rust. We turn your sacred statues back into the dust. The accident is crystallizing in your burning lung. The final song of your dynasty is finally sung. I watch the capillaries burst beneath the skin. This is the place where the new physics begin. Your blood is an ink that is too thick to write. We are the void inside the middle of the night. You're pretty in the marrow, no mercy in the nerve. You got the total zero that your failed gods deserve. The molecular bond is tearing at the seam. This is the ending of your calculated dream. Ice cracks the stone. Frost breaks the throne. The code is set. The storm is threat. Snap the chain, kill the pain, freeze the brain, and the rain.
Ice expanding in the stone pillar.
The glacier is the only serial killer.
Purple frozen lips of the dead kings.
Snap the chains of your jewel thing.
Ice expanding in the stone pillar.
The glacier is the only serial killer.
Purple frozen lips of the dead kings.
Snap the chains of your jewel things.
Ice climbing up a golden crown.
And bone, data is feeding through muscle and stone. I see the geometry carved in the mud. Calculation of pressure and volume of blood. Discard the identity, cancel the name. Input the coordinates, level the frame. Biological hardware is failing the test. I aim for the leverage to open the chest. Shield wall is nothing but redundant code. Heavy the axle and heavy the load. Focus the optic on hinges and gears. I do not process their pleading or fears. Calibration is perfect, the vector is true. I see the red where the eye goes through. System is crashing, the barrier is thin. I find the failure points under the skin.
Break the lever, crack shatter, calcium shatter, neural delay, biological systems are wasting away.
Ignore the ice, for they do not exist. I target the hinge at the base of the wrist. Visualize tendons that anchor the heel. Achilles is snapping from impact of steel. 1,000 kilopascals hit the patella. Shatter the knee of the infantry fella. Dropping the weight on the bending base. There is no humanity, there is no face. Only the caliper measuring strides. Only the marrow where agony hides. Downward trajectory, sever the cord. I am the compiler, the axe is the word. Kinetic potential is stored in my grip. Watch the alignment and watch the blade slip. Deep in the tissue where latency grows. I am the logic of biological fall.
The lever, break the lever, crack the joint, axe input, at the critical point. Calcium shatter, neural delay, biological systems are wasting away.
Locate the gap where the plates do not meet. Anatomy lessons are written in sleep. Collarbone void is the primary target. Harvest the ribs like a butcher at market. Subclavian artery pumped to the void. Internal structure is fully destroyed. No honor in physics, no mercy in math. I calculate tables to clear out the path. Radius zap, ulna snap. Scapula cracks where the interface gap. Know where the function and shatter the link. I do not feel and I do not even blink. Total collapse of the skeletal grid. Tearing the memories he had hid. The collarbone cavity opens for me. I am the surgeon of an archery. No soul in the data, no ghost in the shell. Only the calcium, only the smell. I am calibrated to render these meats. I am the virus that ruins the streets. Tear out the ligament, tear out the nerve. I give the failure that they all deserve. Fracture the sternum and puncture the lung. An ancient dialect on modern tongue. Axe to the tibia, axe to the spine. Deleting the records of every line. I do not see you as men in the rain. I see the valves that
are leaking the drain.
Biological failure detected. Anatomy is now disconnected.
Scared, cut, dead. Only the calcium left in the head.
Steel against the granite face.
Steel against the granite face, removing every bloodline trace. Dust is thick and dust is cold, breaking every family mold. Iron edge and heavy weight, calculating new data. Stayed gray stone, powder on the palm. Ending every ancient psalm, violent strikes on sacred vow. History stripped by iron trowel. No more names inside the deep. No more vows for bones to keep. System rebooting the wrist. Family data cease to exist. Recalibrating the calcium frame. Removing the frequency of the name.
Strike the rock,
Turn the lock. Stop the clock. Stop the clock.
crush the stock.
Stop the clock. Crush the shatter the runes of the fatherline. Geometry of the void design. Scrape the marrow and clean the ride. Shredding the fabric of the grid. Axe and binary collide in dark. Leaving behind a vacant mark. Iron chisel on ancient wall. Watch the bloodline system fall. Bone and tendon realign, genetic hardware redesign. Sever the nerves that link the kin. New encryption under skin. Coordinate the spinal stack. There is no route to trace it back. Carbon fiber in the joint, reaching a terminal breaking point. Delete the markers in the cell. Empty is the calcium shell. Every ancestor is null. Stripping data from the skull.
Strike,
Strike!
strike.
Turning my back on the open grave. I am the master and the slave. Gray stone dust is on my breath. Simulating a digital death. Format the cortex and the vein. Disconnect from the ancient chain. Physics physics of iron and weight of hand, erasing my place in the Holy Land.
Ribcage opens a cleaner space. No more features upon the face. An exile born from the granite chip, loosening the familial grip.
Calibration complete in the marrow, aiming the mechanical arrow. No nostalgia inside the lung, no more hymns to be bitterly sung. Shatter the runes of the father line, geometry of the void design. Scrape the marrow and clean the ripe, shredding the fabric of the crib. Axe and binary collide in dark, leaving behind a vacant mark. Iron chisel on ancient wall, watch the bloodline system fall.
I turn my back on the dusk and the iron, and the rust I trust. No legacy remains in due hardware, reborn in hardware new. Bone meets the iron, marrow turns to lead. System calibration, nothing in the head. Shield wall is failing, armor is the shell. Physics of the mountain greeting us to hell. Nerves like a circuit sparking in the cold. Ice shelf is the program, stories never told. Axe on the tendon, grip is at the max. Calculating impact, waiting for the cracks. Geometry of slaughter, 45 degrees. Logic of the impact, bringing to the knees. Skull is the processor, blood is only code. Heavy is the burden, heavy is the road. Throat chords vibrate in the hollow of the chest. Final input sequence putting us to rest. I roar at the peak like a concussive blast. Shout, every link in the chain is shattering at last. Shatter ice shells are cracking in the echo of the sound. Hearing the thunder as it rips from the ground. The wall of the white is a descending force. Gravity is that is steering every course. We are the buried, we are the still, bending the mountain to a hard iron will. Ribcage is clamping, lungs are out of air. Enemy is screaming, trapped inside the glare. Bone density shatters, tectonic is the shift. Falling through the static, falling through the rift. Cartilage and concrete, granite and the vein. Processing the pressure, processing the pain. No self-preservation, only the command. Burying the legion, burying the land. Hardware is freezing, synapse is the spark. Dragging every soldier down into the dark. Knees locked in status, boots deep in the shale. Writing the ending of the Viking tale. I stand perfectly still on the edge of the fall. Bone against the boulder answering the call. No muscle is twitching, no pulse in the wrist. Waiting for the moment that we don't exist. Calibration, zero gravity is law. Ice is in the socket, ice is in the jaw. Tendons are frozen, anchoring the weight. Merging with the mountain, opening the gate. I roar at the peak like a concussive blast. Shouts, every link in the chain is shattering and lead. Shatter ice shells are cracking in the echo of the sound. Hearing the thunder as it rips from the ground. The wall of the white is a descending force. Gravity is that is steering every course. We are the buried, we are the still, bending the mountain to a hard iron will. Skull plate is cracking, crushing in the dome, making the permafrost a permanent home. Joints turn to gravel, femur turns to dust, and the laws of physics is the only trust. Digital extinction, ancient is the soil, ending all the motion, ending all the toil. Marrow is the fossil, skeleton is stone, sealing up the valley, dying all alone. Data loss, imminent, ribs underweight, underweight, underweight. Calibration failed, locking the gate, lock the gate, lock the gate.
Thermal drop measured in calcium walls. Gravity fails as the mercury falls. Steel in the sternum, the structure is void. Logic of mortal man fully destroyed. Frozen the optic nerve right in the skull. Signal is flatline, the static is full. Cornet glaciated, fixed on the source. Biological hardware is running its course. They snap in the boot. Data corruption has severed the root. Metatarsal fragments are grinding to dust. Cortex is purged of the rot and the rust. Geometric perfection is found in the ice. Flesh was the depth and the breath was the price. Ligaments locking the torque of the gear. Frequency zero is all that I hear.
Stare at the sun with the iris decayed.
System is still and the debt has been paid.
No heart is beating in caverns of ribs.
No truth is spoken in cellular libs.
Calibrate access to 0 degrees. Sensory isolate finally freeze. Scales of the Valkyrie heavy with gold. Blood in the ventricle turn into cold.
Input the trauma and output the void. Ego and tendon and marrow destroyed. Calibrate radius, ulna and spine. Mapping the frontier of sovereign design. Femur is pillar and pelvis is base. Scanning the geometry carved in the face. Zero reaction to solar flare burn. Point of no biological return. Absolute internal sensory hush. No more the pulse and no more the rush. Cartilage brittle as shattered dark glass. Watching the data of centuries pass. Mandible frozen in permanent grin. Algorithm under the thickness of skin. Staring directly at solar discharge. Iris is closing, the glare is too large. No blinking, the protocol systems are locked. Forced to the Valhalla terminal shock. Synapse is burning, but nada is felt. Glaciers will shatter, what never will melt. Fission of humors and SILICON. Warrior hardware is rising again.
Stare at the sun with the iris decayed.
System is still and the debt has been paid.
No heart is beating in caverns of ribs.
No truth is spoken in cellular libs.
Calibrate access to 0 degrees. Sensory isolate finally freeze. Scales of the Valkyrie heavy with gold. Blood in the ventricle turn into cold.
Optic nerve severed.
Connection lost.
Calculated victory.
Measured cost.
No breath on the mirror.
No pulse in the wrist.
I do not feel.
I only exist.
Final mouthful spat on the white, shutting down the internal light. Red stain on the frozen crust, biological hardware turns to rust. Jawbone unhinged from the skull, the vibrations in the ear are null. Teeth are grinding on the sleep, the calibration is now complete. Sternum cracks like breaking ice, pay the metabolic price. Blood is thick and leaving the veins, sever the link to the central brain. The geometry of the ribs is sharp, the wind plays the tendons like a harp. Every muscle fiber starts to tear, exhale into the dead frozen air. Empty chest, no vaporize, cold data behind the eyes. Empty chest, no vaporize, cold data behind the eyes. Measure the gap in the vertebrae stack, there is no route for the circuitry back. The clotting factor is falling to zero, no need for a god, no need for a hero. Rib cage is hollow and echoing dry, under the pixel grid of the sky. Scapula aligned with a northern star, healing is nothing but a legacy scar. Nerve endings freeze in a static line, execute the total death design. Femur is locked in the permafrost, individual files are permanently lost. Bone marrow hardens the liquid lead, the physical map is being reread. Scan the skeleton for structural flaws, submit to the thermodynamics law. Step off the cliff to the void below, leave the pattern in the bloody snow. No heat remaining in the hollow shell, break the biological heavy spell. Step off the cliff to the void below, leave the pattern in the bloody snow. No heat remaining in the hollow shell, break the biological heavy spell. Abdominal muscles are rigid and thin, delete the sensations on the skin. Diaphragm is stiff like a stretched shin. The cold is where the new data begins, no mist escaping the open mouth. The compass is shattered for Degum the south. Radius and Nona are straight as a blade, the biological debt is fully paid. Kneecap is welded to the iron earth, forget the measurement of room and worth. Tendons are snapping like frozen wire, extinguish the metabolic internal fire. Hollow rib cage is a cavern of frost, every ounce of the warmth is lost. Calibration of the void is true, the ancient geometry is coming through. Rib cage, rib cage, rib cage. No breath, no breath, no vapor, no pulse, no data. Toes a degenerate to granite shelf, deleting the concept of the self. No hesitation in the tarsal joint, reach the absolute vanishing point. Gravity calculates the velocity rate, accept the impact of the final state. Ribs are bringing like a hollow bell, there is no more organic prison cell. Headphone shatters on a jagged stone, leave the marrow in the broken bones. Spill the remaining bit of the warm, become the center of the frozen storm. Atmospheric pressure is all that remains, nothing is pumping through in dead veins. Perfect vessel for the infinite night, binary darkness replaces the sight. Step into the void, 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 step into the void.
Geometry of death and mud, no heat in the brain, no waste in the blood. The tactical grid etched deep in the frost, every coordinate means the enemy is lost. Hand signals move like the sweep of a blade, the plan is encoded, the ambush is laid. Two fingers raised to the gray northern sky, zero latency while the infantry dies. Shield wall is locked like a hardened drive bay, we process the numbers of corpses today. Axes an ordinate cross on the slope, calculated failure for the shattered hope.
This is the logic of iron and bone,
the algorithm sits on a frozen throne.
We calibrate axes by skew and by degree,
System is optimized for every death we see.
axes and arrows in parallel lines,
The body count follows the leader's design. launch on a synchronized tick. The math of the arc is vicious and quick. Arrows input into sternum and rib. Life is extracted from the broken crib. No shouting, no screaming, just physical force. The vector of iron is holding its course. 0.7 radians, the trajectory clears. We ignore the vibrations of biological fears. Calipers measure the widths of the breach beyond where the mercy of gods can reach. Cold iron factors the density of shield. We harvest the data across the white field.
This is the logic of iron and bone.
The algorithm sits on a frozen dome.
We calibrate axes by skew and by degree.
System is optimized for every depth we see.
Axes and arrows in parallel lines.
The body count follows the leader's design.
No adrenaline flows in the heart in vain.
Only the data of physical pain. Cartilage crunches as the formula runs. Old gods are dead in the light of our suns. Femur and fibula shatter like glass as the parameters of our formation pass. Neural pathways are severed by seal. There is no emotion for the conquered the field. Tendons are sliced from the joint and the heel. Locked in the spokes of the logical wheel. We map the location of marrow and nerve to sharpen the edge of the killing curve. Inputting trauma to the vertebrae stack. There is no rebooting once the skull starts to crack. I hold the slate with a steady left hand, marking the reduction of the living in this land. 300 units removed from the right, 400 units erased from the light. The sum of the valley is zero at last. The future is erasing the errors of the past. One final signal, a clenched iron fist. The names of the fallen are clear from the list.
This is the logic of iron and bone.
The algorithm sits on a frozen throne.
We calibrate axes by skew and by degree.
System is optimized for every depth we see.
Axes and arrows in parallel lines.
The body count follows the leader's decline.
No adrenaline flows in the heart in vain.
Only the god of physical pain. Calculation complete. The enemy.
Boom strikes the ice with the weight of a glacier. Killing the pulses, the only procedure. The permafrost shatters under mechanical weight. The geometry shifts at the iron gate. Calibrate mirror to low frequency hum. Neural path locking to leather and drum. Toe tide is stretched over hollowed out oak. Carbon is filling the lungs like a smoke. Ephemeris swinging to strike the skin tight. Resonance shaking the ribs in the night. Frequency dropping below the red line. Biological clock starts for realign. Match the drum, match the drum. Calibrate the bone to the system of war. Match the drum, match the drum. Zero latency on the frozen floor. Drop the rate, drop the rate. Anatomy locked to the ancient code. Match the drum, match the drum. Marching alone on the iron road. Inputting data through tendons and nerves. Spatial awareness is all that it serves. Ventricle valves closing down to the pit. Hardware is hardened and perfectly fit. I see the horizon, a pixelated gray. Processing light in a functional way. Calcium pillars supporting the frame. Removing the vocal filing to a name. No adrenaline leaking to poison the flow. Cooling is pumping where blood used to go. The mallet is heavy, the impact is pure. System stability steady and sure. 4 beats per minute is all that remains. Static is moving through copper white veins. 3 beats per minute, the pavement is cracked. Ancestral memory is fully unpacked. 2 beats per minute, the vision is fixed. Oxygen levels and nitrogen mixed. 1 beat per minute, the synchrony starts. Sign is replacing the flesh of the heart. Match the drum, match the drum. Calibrate the bone to the system of war. Match the drum, match the drum. Zero latency on the frozen floor. Drop the rate, drop the rate. Anatomy locked to the ancient code. Match the drum, match the drum. Marching alone of the iron road. Dead eyes eyes are locking on infinite zero. Logic is greater than legend or hero. The femur is striking the leather again, bypassing synapses, triggering pain. I am the instrument, I am the tool, governed by physics and binary rule. My spine is a conduit, my skull is a shell, executing orders extremely well. No palpitations, no falter, no fear, only the sound of the crushing is near. Bull meets the height in the thunderous crash, converting the body to data and dash. People are shattering ice on the track. System is aligned and never looks back, connecting the marrow to iron and steel, removing the circuit that offers the field. The war drum is pulsing inside of the chest. The soldier is finally put to the test. Calibrate, calibrate, activate, activate, activate. The frozen wasteland is where I am safe. Axe in the grip of a hydraulic claw, obeying the one mathematical law. Match the drum, calibrate the bone to the system of war. Match the drum, zero latency on the frozen floor. Drop the rate, anatomy locked to the ancient code. Match the drum, marching alone on the iron road. Rate at 0.1. Mission is almost begun. Hardware integrated with frost. Indigible data is lost. One strike, one step, one step, one step.
Zero Kelvin campsite, heat is dead. Frostbitten logic inside the head. Fine gray powder scooped onto the tongue. Cold binary ash where the banners hung. Swallowing dry dust without a choke. Structural integrity found in the smoke. No liquid buffer for the throat to drain. Just gritty data entering the brain. Captain's radius ash tasting the grit. Command structure code where the teeth are split. Burn femur fragments, calcified mass. Shattering the lens of the hourglass. Calibration of the jaw to the bone. Seeing the geometry of the throne. Anatomy hardens with every swallow. Filling the gaps where the ribs are hollow.
I am the density, I am the weight. Calibrated axe
At the terminal gate.
Marrow conversion system is locked.
The geometry of physics is stunned and sharp.
Absorbing the mass, devouring the dead.
Internal hardware painted in red.
Nerves of copper, tendons of steel.
Crushing the ground beneath the iron heel. Ligament cables tight, tension at peak. Algorithm of violence, the marrow will speak. Processing the calcium, hardening the mesh. In organic physics beneath the frozen flesh. Rib cage strutting the spinal column rail. Terminal velocity punch that cannot fail. Scraping the urn for the last of the lead. Interface active inside of the head. Vertebrae stacking like a heavy tower. Integrating the fallen as kinetic power. No discuss detected in the sensor array. Only the logic of the ash and the gray. Cartilage hardening, cement in the veins. Breaking the tether of the physical chain. Scanning the horizon with the dead man's eye. Reading the coordinates of the war-torn sky.
I am the density, I am the weight.
Calibrated axe at the terminal date.
Marrow conversion system is locked.
The geometry of physics is stunned and sharp.
Absorbing the mass, devouring the dead.
Internal hardware painted in red.
Nerves of copper, tendons of steel.
Crushing the ground beneath the iron heel. Sinus cavity filled with the dust. Armor plating formed from the rust. Nerve endings firing in the frozen circuits. Physics engine primed, I know how to work it. Radius, ulna, tibia, spine. Mapping the conquest in a linear line.
1, 0, 1, 0.
Jaw hinge locked for the final grind. leaving the concept of pity behind. Phalanges rigid like the teeth of the saw, executing the data of the ancient law. Metacarpal density heavy in the fist, killing the vapor and the morning mist. Ancestral geometry etched in the soul. System is peak,
No longer dull.
shoulder socket pivot and mechanical swing. Hear the vibration of the shield rim ring, tearing the fibers, the muscles are strung on the coldest platform where the hymn is sung. Consuming the tech balls, the structural gain, numbing the receptors for the input of pain. Axe and dendrites in a fire, climbing the rungs of the frozen pyre.
I am the density, I am the weight.
Calibrated axe at the terminal gate.
Marrow conversion system is locked.
The geometry of physics is stunned and sharp.
Absorbing the mass, devouring the dead.
Internal hardware painted in red,
Nerves of copper, tendons of steel.
crushing the ground beneath the iron heel.
Ash on the tongue, ash on the tongue.
Bone in the gut, bone in the gut.